The most recent figures on Japan's population trend are dismal. The number of deaths in 2022, 1.56 million, was approximately twice as high as the number of births, 771,000. According to residency records, the country's internal ministry forecasts an 800,000 population reduction last year. This is the greatest total population decline since comparable figures were started compiled in 1968. Japan today has 122.4 million citizens, down from around 128 million 15 years ago. However, Japan's population decline is not a new phenomenon. Since the 1990s, successive Japanese governments have been aware that population decrease would occur and have attempted to propose alternatives. Nonetheless, the rate of contraction has surprised even the specialists. The Tokyo-based National Institute of Population and Social Security Research, for example, predicted in 2017 that the annual number of births will not fall below 800,000 until 2030. With the news of Japan's population decline becoming more dire, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's government has proposed a series of initiatives to encourage more people to have children. Before we proceed, kindly return the favor and like and subscribe. Some experts and climate scientists think that as the climate issue intensifies, population decline could help our devastated ecosystems and reduce emissions. However, it poses problems for countries such as Japan, which will have fewer employees to support pensions and healthcare, as well as fewer personnel to care for the elderly. Japan inaugurated its new Children and Families Agency in April, focusing on initiatives to support parents such as the establishment of more daycare centers, as well as youth services such as counseling. Previous similar endeavors, frequently sponsored by local governments, have failed to turn things around. Busy city lifestyles and lengthy work hours provide little time for some Japanese to establish families, and growing living costs make having a baby simply too expensive for many young people. According to Jefferies research, Japan will be one of the most costly places in the world to raise a child in 2022. Nonetheless, the country's economy has been stagnant since the early 1990s, resulting in depressingly low incomes and few opportunities for advancement. The decrease in the number of Japanese nationals over the last year reflects the government's staunch anti-immigrant stance. According to the Japanese government, foreigners will account for only 2.2% of the population in 2021 compared to 13.6% in the United States. These beliefs are popular among the general public. According to a Pew Research Center research from 2021, almost half of Japanese adults believe that having a varied society makes their country a worse place to live, but this figure is lower than in previous years. Kishida warned in January that the country was on the verge of a crisis, and that his administration will spend nearly 20 trillion yen, approximately 128 billion euros, $140 billion, on measures to help young couples who want to have more children. This amounts to almost 4% of Japan's GDP, and is nearly double the amount set aside by the government for the same target in fiscal year 2021. The Prime Minister also formed a committee to figure out how to spend the extra monies. He hosted an event in Tokyo in late July to celebrate the commencement of a nationwide campaign to support children and families. The administration has agreed to raise child allowances and make greater efforts to eliminate child poverty and abuse. New fathers will also be encouraged to take paternity leave, and more money will be allocated to preschool facilities so that working parents may return to work. Parents will also benefit from increased tax savings. However, critics are not totally convinced by the latest plans. They warn that the previous government had attempted to stimulate a baby boom through spending, but Japanese society failed to respond. Perhaps an even bigger issue is that the share of elderly Japanese is quickly increasing. 1/3 of the population is over 60, and 12.5% is over 75. The working-age population peaked in 1997 and is now 9.7 million people lower than it was then. These facts are well established, but the implications have yet to be fully absorbed. They are significant. Rapid and sustained immigration may delay and finally stop population decrease, but it is exceedingly improbable that Japan will open up to large amounts of immigration. Japan has a lot of cultural and institutional work to perform before it can accept a considerable number of immigrants. The major goal of Japanese economic policy should be to preserve living standards and improve per capita incomes, rather than to expand the overall economy. Even increasing per capita incomes would be a tremendous achievement in the face of a demographic crisis unprecedented in history. Japan's neighbors are dealing with the same issue. South Korea's population is beginning to decline, and China's working-age population has already reached its high. China faces the additional challenge of becoming old before becoming prosperous. No other country's demographic challenge is as grave as Japan's, and the entire world will be watching for lessons. Many countries are obsessed with GDP growth, and former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's Abenomics reform program aimed for 1% GDP growth every year. In recent years, Japan's GDP growth has been close to zero. When the population is falling, what does negative GDP growth, a technical recession if it lasts 6 months or more, mean? Maybe not as much as we imagined. If the economy does not grow, per capita income may rise while the population declines. And because the Japanese have saved and invested abroad, they have assets that generate income. Gross national income and gross national product might differ significantly. The rate of economic growth must be measured differently for countries with rising populations that need to provide jobs, such as India. Since the early 1990s, when the asset bubble burst, Japan has witnessed anemic economic development. Nonetheless, the Japanese people are wealthy, they live very long lives, which contributes to the big proportion of the elderly in Japan is safe, clean, comfortable, and contemporary. There is no sense of crisis or urgency driving major changes among the Japanese people. The fixation with expanding the aggregate economy and restoring Japan to pre-war glory looks to be an odd distraction. The Abenomics policy package for economic recovery is clearly failing. The Bank of Japan has done its part by injecting more money into the economy, purchasing assets on the open market, and even following the European Central Bank into negative interest rate zone, but the government has not. The other two arrows of Abenomics have critically misfired: flexible fiscal policy with medium-term budgetary consolidation and structural change. Government spending has not slowed, and the second consumption tax increase, from 8% to 10%, has been pushed back from 2015 to 2017. The goal of achieving primary surpluses, government spending less than receipts while ignoring debt interest payments, by 2020 has been pushed back. Gross government debt has reached an all-time high of 245% of GDP and is still rising. This is unstructured Keynesian spending. The most crucial policy package is structural reform, and there has been even less activity on that front. Supply-side or productivity-boosting reforms necessitate overcoming vested interests that stifle productivity development and allowing resources to be allocated where they are most productive. The Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement aided Japan's third arrow slightly. However, the goal of agricultural transformation has largely gone unfulfilled. Japan will require productivity growth to maintain living standards as its population shrinks and ages. Printing additional money is not a long-term solution. As the labor force shrinks, each worker must become more productive in order to sustain a bigger share of the population. They will be able to do so more likely if Japan continues to open up to international finance, technology, and workers. Although large-scale immigration is unlikely in the near future, Japan is gradually welcoming skilled workers and more tourists. To increase the inflow of foreign employees and accomplish the government's objective of recruiting 40 million tourists by the 2020 Olympics, institutional and even cultural reform would be required. This will also assist in attracting more foreign investment. Japan was a pioneer. It pioneered an Asian development model and went on to become one of the world's most successful high-income countries in the post-war period. However, the uncharted territory of its demographic transition now necessitates uncommon policy ingenuity and entrepreneurship. Recognizing that Japan's aggregate GDP will ultimately begin to contract as population increases is a good place to start. Accepting the ramifications for Japan's place in the world and reshaping Japan's national agenda will undoubtedly take much longer. And now let us hear from you in the comments section below. Keep in mind that more videos will be up soon, so be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell in order to stay up to date with new video uploads. Also, sharing indicates you want to see our content reach a wider audience. Thanks for watching. See you in